I tried Forspoken, and while I think this game isn't perfect by any means, I think there's some potential in it. But is that enough? Before I talk about this, let me just say that having a demo before the release date is awesome. It lets us play something that is still pretty much a work in progress, and there's no better way to know how we feel about something than trying it ourselves. I just wish more developers did this, since having our feedback can greatly benefit the game they are working on. Forspoken is a game I found interesting when it was revealed, but I was never fully on board, much because of who was developing it. You see, Final Fantasy XV comparisons aren't just about how this game looks, but how it feels as a whole.
I've come up with a new recipe.
And after playing the demo, this was accentuated in a way. It's like everything in Forspoken has a lot of potential, but each section doesn't quite get there in my opinion. Keep in mind this is an old build, so a lot is subject to change. When you first start your journey, you immediately find yourself in an open world full of vegetation, rock formations, rivers, and points of interest that beg you to be explored. The fog fills the valleys, and the lighting adds this natural tone to the landscape, almost too natural to the point that it might look a bit bland with this time of day, and it doesn't change, unfortunately. The grass and flowers move when Frey steps on them, and particles fly all over the place when she uses magic. In fact, this was always one of the most stunning parts of Forspoken in trailers. The amount of particles on screen can be impressive at times. The textures and geometry are quite good as well, but all of this is somewhat overshadowed by the resolution and the reconstruction methods in place. This game can appear really blurry in performance mode. And with so much stuff happening at the same time during battle or traversal, this can be a bit jarring to look at. But if you're okay playing at 30 FPS, the quality mode can help a bit in this regard, and the image quality is way sharper. I tried it and it was fine, but I really prefer playing games the smoothest way possible. So performance mode was a no-brainer and I stick with it. However, even with the resolution cut back this much, the performance just doesn't hold in some areas or during intense combat situations, and it is particularly noticeable here. The UI is also a mixed bag for me. I totally get they wanted to make this as stylish as possible, and each time you were to delve into the menus it wouldn't be something boring to do. And I really like the idea, and Persona 5 is one of the best examples out there. Oh yeah, that's the shit. But the aesthetic they went for is not the most functional one. I'm sure everyone will get used to it, but changing the fisheye effect and going for a simpler 2D menu would be much better in my opinion. Some of the text doesn't even fit the menu, so I hope this gets changed or at least tweaked for the final release. But some of the most positive things I can say about the demo have to do with gameplay, and it's here that the comparisons to FF15 start shining a light on Forspoken. I really like the traversal, and I know it is not here in full form, and there will be some new things to try depending on the terrain and circumstances we're in, but for what it is here, it felt great. The DualSense does an amazing job connecting you to Frey's movement. I mean, the haptic feedback in general is just very well implemented. When you're attacked, you can also feel Frey's heartbeat in your hands, and it's kind of freaky. The one thing I changed as soon as I could though was the option to always have to hold the circle button to continuously run across the land. When you disable this and turn up the camera speed, the game is instantly better to control and you have much more freedom without being forced to hold the button with the finger you would normally use on the right stick to turn the camera to look around. Combat was also really cool and better than I expected. In the demo you have two types of magic, and you can change between them on the fly to deal with certain enemies and exploit their weaknesses. It is fast paced and you can parkour during these moments, and it is pretty fluid to be honest. The performance can get in the way sometimes, especially when you use AoE magic that has a lot of particles, but other than that, I really enjoyed my time with it, and for me this is the biggest departure from Final Fantasy XV. I never felt I was in control in that game. Holding a button while Noctis is doing several slashes with his weapon is such a big disconnect. You don't feel you're doing it yourself. In Forspoken, however, every action needs your input, and you have to earn your victory, which is a big plus for you to feel rewarded, even after conquering the smallest of battles. However, I noticed something was off, and I just found out what it was by the third time I played the demo. The actions you perform are not immediate, and at first I thought this was because of the triggers and the trigger effect, but turns out there's a delay in the first attack animation. When you perform a combo, the subsequent attacks are fine and on time with the button press. It's just the first one that is delayed because of the longer animation. But with all that said, I'm quite positive about the gameplay. There really is potential here, and what I'm most curious about are the boss encounters. And I don't mean mini bosses, I'm talking about the big ones, those that are related to the narrative or big side quests. Story-wise, the demo is lacking, which is normal. And the only thing you get that's close to it is the banter between Frey and the Cuff.
This should be easy enough.
If only that were true of every battle. That'll teach you.
Yeah, what he said. Kinda want more of a challenge.
I'm very glad to hear it.
Ha, this'll be a pushover.
There are slightly more of them than I'd like.
Ha, finished in record time.
Poor quality of the opposition did help quite a bit.
Dun 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 dun.
Not a particularly exacting opponent.
Oh, you want me to make things more interesting for you?
So I put it in minimal after some time. And for there to be an option for this, the developers are clearly acknowledging the problem, but at least it is there and I appreciate it. Don't get me wrong, I don't necessarily think the story will be a disaster. In fact, I believe the narrative can be a strong point that favors the overall experience. It's just that one thing that nobody can tell for sure yet, and if it turns out good, great. They are keeping the story really close to them, and I'm hopeful they learned a lot from FF15, but I gotta say, I'm very skeptical because of all the footage that was shown so far. Lastly, this is probably one of my biggest gripes with the game, and I don't know if it will be changed at all, and that's the music and how it is implemented. I believe music has an absolute power over everything that you see on screen. I'm sure a lot of you have already experienced fantastic stuff where the mechanics or the visuals were not the best, but the soundtrack pretty much elevated everything during those scenes. And from the small taste I got from the demo, the music is so generic. Not that I don't like it, it's not bad or anything, but the track that plays over and over again while you're exploring is a piece that should be played once or twice in the entire game. It can basically ruin the exploration. If this is the way they want it to be, they sure need to compose some bangers so you can never get tired of listening to them. There are a lot of games that do this amazingly well, and Square Enix of all the companies not nailing this is quite surprising. Final Fantasy VII World Music, for example. I can listen to it all day, and by the end of a play session, I will still be humming that melody. But if they go for the playlist approach, they should look no further than Final Fantasy XV. That game had great exploration music. It was beautiful, it was fun, it could be dark sometimes, but it was always changing, and it adds a lot to the gameplay and the sense of wonder while discovering new places. I hope this was only done for the demo and it's just placeholder stuff, I really do. Forspoken shows a lot of promise. This sneak peek at the game doesn't portray the final build whatsoever, and that's what I'm focused on despite the issues. This was also stated by the creative director in an interview in which he said that the demo was specifically built to showcase combat and parkour, and the side quests in the finished game would be nothing like the ones we are seeing here. The same goes for the empty world that was presented to us. Nonetheless, a lot of people are actually enjoying it, and I did too to an extent. But to be honest, I'm still not entirely convinced. I wish nothing but the best for this game, and I sure hope Forspoken surprises me and everyone is skeptical about it when it releases in January next year. So guys, this was my take on Forspoken and my experience with the demo after some hours with it. I would love to know how was yours, what you think of all of this, and if you're excited for it. So feel free to share in the comments and I will make sure to check them. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.